Hello everybody, welcome back to another video in my monthly music series. Sorry I'm a day between this video and my last video where I wrap up the month of October. In this video I talk about what I've been listening to over the last month. I talk about some first time spins that I've given an album and that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoy this. Month of October I had a lot of music listening. I was able to kind of get back in the swing of things after being um, ill the last month in September, so I was able to kick back in and really spend some time focusing on some music. Again, I worked from home a lot the last month, so I had a lot of music in my stereo behind me while I was doing my work. So again, I knocked out 75 unique albums in the month of October, which is close to my top month. I think the top month I had was 100 or a little bit over 100 sometime earlier in the year. Knocked out 75 different unique albums. And what's funny is I usually show, my top artists and my top albums of the year. Well, all of my top albums and all of my top artists were tied. So there's no one, two, three. They're all on the same level playing field. I listen to them equally. So let me jump into my top albums that I listened to in the month of October. Just a few. I had a bunch that I listened to about the same amount. I pulled three. Again, not to keep the video too long. The first one I talk about all the time, so I won't mention it too much. Lavender Days. This has been constant rotation really since it's been out. I think over the summer by the band Camp. Just great Americana, kind of laid back music. Sounds like you're out camping. The type of music that it is, light banjos, kind of a smoky vocal. So I really love that album. It's a contender for album of the year for me. Sorry, Glenn Kellaway. Next up, and these kind of go in line with some first time spins as well, so I won't double down. This is Nick Drake, the album Family Tree that came out in 2010, I believe, 2007. And it's essentially a series of home demos and, some covers that he did before his first album, Five Leaves Left. He's got, old blues songs on here, some originals that ended up on Five Leaves Left. He has a duet with his sister, Genevieve, on, Gabrielle on the old folk song, All My Trials. And then a couple of songs on here by his mom, Molly Drake, who had a semi-successful solo career of her own. And then lastly, for albums that I've listened to a lot, with it being Halloween, I listened to this album a little bit, Monster Mash by Boris Pickett and the Crypt Kickers. Complete novelty record. I kind of just got a feeling like I wanted to hear the whole album. Obviously, Monster Mash is on here, and then all sorts of songs going off of that, like Monsters Holiday, which is a Christmas song, Monster Minuet, Transylvania Twist, which they talk about in the Monster Mash. So it's all goofy. The music itself is really good, but perfect for October. Just a good time. Short little album. All right, there's that. And now it's funny. My top three artists of the last month are absolutely zero surprise to anybody that watches my channel. It was just one of those months where I wanted to listen to all these artists. So here's one right here. Again, Bob Dylan, the Bootleg Series, Volume 4. I listened to a lot of Bob Dylan the last month. Just got in the mood. I picked this up over the last month, listened to this for the first time. It's, the Bootleg is considered the Royal Albert Hall concert, when in reality it was actually filmed at the recorded at the Manchester Hall. It's the infamous concert where somebody shouted Judas to Dylan and the band who were backing him up because he was going electric, and his diehard fans did not like it. So lots of Bob Dylan in October. Just got in the mood. Again, all these are tied. Listened to a lot of John Prine, really because I listened to this full box set during the month of October. Just really wanted to dive into this. I hadn't listened to it in a while. I had done a video with Rich Strickler and Glenn Kellaway where we had ranked the first John Prine album, song by song, and I was like, I need to listen to some John Prine this month. So I jumped into Diamonds in the Rough, Sweet Revenge, Common Sense, just this whole box set, which is fantastic if you can get your hands on it. It's called Crooked Piece of Time. I've done an unboxing on it early on in my channel. I know my friend Robert S. over at Robscure Music picked this up on my recommendation. really cheap. It's like $40, maybe even less now, and you get those first 7 John Prine albums. And then I listened to a lot of Tom Petty this past month. Again, I did another video with Rich Strickler recently where we ranked the songs on Full Moon Fever with Josh over at the Flipside Vinyl. And I really dove back into this box set over the last month, Wildflowers and all the rest. I love this box set. It's probably my favorite box set that I own, just because, you know, even though I'm a diehard fan of the Beatles, I love, you know, the Elton John album, Madman Across the Water. I love Bob Dylan. All of those box sets seem to have filler on them. There's no filler on this. It's not like 10 takes of, you know, You Wreck Me. Just great live stuff, unreleased cuts, beautiful home demos. And I listen to a lot of other Tom Petty albums too, but this is kind of what kickstarted me into, you know, going back into a few of Tom Petty's albums that I don't listen to that much. All right, now some first time spins this month. Start with the vinyl. Rocky Mountain High by John Denver. This was the 50th anniversary reissue that just came out. It's on blue vinyl. I'm not going to pull it out. It's just standard like cobalt blue vinyl, nothing fancy. Fantastic album by John Denver. He gets a lot of flack, but I mean, he's just a beautiful singer, beautiful guitarist, great songs. You know, on this album, he does Paradise by John Prine. He does, of course, Rocky Mountain High, Darcy Farrow, the Beatles song, Mother Nature's Son, For Baby, Goodbye Again, and then the beautiful Seasons Suite at the end. So that's a great album if you can get your hands on it. I finally listened to this album, The Beach Boys Love You. I bought this over my summer journey down to North Carolina to visit my buddy Tommy Burton over at Tommy's Musical Adventures, and I found a really clean copy of this. Tommy's a big fan of this. It's a weird, trippy album. Brian was back in the fold at this point after his you know, heavy drugs and mental instabilities with his mental illness, and he was back on track with Dr. Landy. This was early on with Dr. Landy. If you don't know Dr. Landy, you know, watch the movie Love and Mercy, and you'll learn all you need to know. Nothing really big on this. I mean, it's the original Beach Boys. Bruce Johnston had taken a break, so it's the original 5 on this album. And it's got some weird spots, but also some really good spots. Kind of synthy. And then again, it was October, and so I got to listen to this for the first time, Frankie Stein and His Ghouls. Really, I mean, you know, you look at it, you think of it as a novelty album, but really it's some pretty good dance music. It's nice, like garage rock instrumentation with, you know, electric guitar, kind of, you know, stuff that you would think of like at a Halloween sock op or something in the early 60s. Really, really cool. I really enjoyed this album. And I'll probably listen to this outside of Halloween, because even though there are some like monster noises on it, they're not heavy like they are on Monster Mash. All right, now a bunch of CDs. I'm just going to kind of run through these. Pipes of Peace by Paul McCartney. Listened to it for the first time. Nothing really stood out. I mean, obviously you have Pipes of Peace and Say, Say, Say with Michael Jackson. But, you know, it's what it is. Again, I told you to listen to some Bob Dylan. I picked up his bootleg series 1 through 3. Really, really cool. This was the first of the bootleg series. It covered 61 through 91. And then, of course, you know, over the years, a lot of the other bootleg series have taken songs from this and added them to those. But there's still stuff unique to this box set. And picked it up. Happy I did. Like it a lot. I touted this album on my last video. Again, I've listened to this for the first time. Brian Wilson, That Lucky Old Sun. Beautiful sunshine pop. Classic Brian Wilson sounds to it. Came out in 2008. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. He even does some collaborations with Van Dyke Parks on it. Again, No Other by Gene Clark. Thank you, Glenn Kellaway, for the recommendation, and for Larry Graves for the gift certificate to purchase this. I won this contest, and this is what I bought with the winnings. Gene Clark, obviously from the Byrds. This is kind of like psych, country, folk. Really cool. This is the deluxe edition with bonus cuts, different sessions, different versions of the songs on the album. So No Other by Gene Clark. A couple of Oasis albums. I talked about this in my other video, Be Here Now, and Definitely Maybe. Listen to those for the first time all the way through. Really, really good stuff. I mean, if you like Britpop, if you like Oasis, definitely get these. If you don't know them, other than What's the Story, Morning Glory, just killer rock and roll. You first and foremost, pure on rock and roll. And of course, their debut starts with the song Rock and Roll Star, which was a common opener for them for many, many years. This is an album by 7A Records. It's a compilation, Davy Jones Live in Japan. 2 CDs and a DVD of Davy Jones when he was in Japan in the early 80s when there was a Monkees revival, and Japanese fans were full on Monkey Mania, 20 plus years after the show had aired. Speaking of Gene Clark, this is Birds, the reunion album, kind of a country folk album. Really like this album. It's a lot more than what the critics say it is, especially if you like country rock and those later Birds albums. It's kind of more of the same line, except you have the original members. You don't have Graham or Gene Parsons on here. You don't have Skip Batten or any of those guys. It's just the original 5. Produced by David Crosby. The Rising by Bruce Springsteen. This was given me by my buddy Rich Strickler. Listen to this for the first time. This was his post 9/11 album. Really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Some heavy songs on here. Stuff like, My City of Ruins. The Rising is on here. Lonesome Day, Into the Fire. Counting on a Miracle. And I know a lot of these songs he was playing live a couple of years before 9/11. But they took on a new meaning after the terrorist attacks in New York. So thank you, Rich, once again. I need to keep rolling here. I'm going pretty slow. A couple of Kiss albums, Animalize by Kiss and Destroyer. Of course, this is probably their biggest album. Has essentially a second greatest hits by the band. If you consider their first album greatest hits as well. I mean, you have Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, God of Thunder, Shout It Out Loud, Beth. Those are all concert staples for the band. And then of course you have demos and some rarities, and then a couple of live cuts on this reissue. And Animalize, this is Kiss after they took off the makeup. They've got songs like Heaven's on Fire, Under the Gun, While the City Sleeps, Murder in High Heels. Pretty heavy album. I know Chris Prophy just talked about it recently as well. Finally got around to listening to this early in the month, Muswell Hillbillies and Everybody's in Showbiz, the new reissue by the Kinks, 50th anniversary. Pretty cool. Muswell Hillbillies kind of has a country feel. Everybody's in Showbiz, again, Dave Davies was such a great writer and such a performer. Well, he still is, but, back in his prime. So this was a cool reissue. Really enjoyed it. My buddy Adam over at What the Gym gave me this a while ago, and I just got around to listening to it, and man, I was really surprised with it. It's 12 songs by Neil Diamond, produced by Rick Rubin. Really, really good album, and I'm not even really a Neil Diamond fan in terms of his singing. He's a great writer, but he kind of got hokey in the 70s and 80s, and was very theatrical, and it wasn't my style. But thank you, Adam. Very acoustic bass, very Rick Rubin-esque, and I really appreciate it. Speaking of things that surprised me, my buddy Aaron Mutha Alamere sent this to me as VCLT on a whim. This is the EP Sap by Alice in Chains, and man, is it good. Only 4 songs, and then there's a bonus cut as well. I know Ann Wilson is on this, as well as who else is on there? Chris Cornell is on here as well. So they were getting some heavy hitters to help them out with this. Really, really cool. Thank you, Aaron. I really enjoyed it. The Beatles Live at the BBC Volume 2. More of the same from Volume 1. I don't think it was as good. It's not quite as raw as Volume 1. But still really good. Still some great interviews at the end from the mid 60s when the Beatles were really, becoming more serious in their music. You can tell they kind of dropped some of their goofy, silly personas and were kind of, introspective in their interviews. But I mean, they've got great covers on here like Memphis, Tennessee, I Got a Woman, Long Tall Sally, Beautiful Dreamer, Sure to Fall in Love with You, Words of Love. Just, you all know this. The Beatles, BBC Volume 2. And last but certainly not least, Elton John live in Australia. Thank you to Dad for getting me this, my dad. We saw Elton John over the summer, and he's been very gracious to get me a couple of Elton John live albums. I know last month I talked about 11/17/70, and then earlier this month I listened to this for the first time. Elton John with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. He does, songs like 60 Years On, Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word, Tiny Dancer, Have Mercy on the Criminal, Madman. Just great stuff. Elton John. Really appreciate it. Sorry this video went long. Had a lot of listening this past month. Had a lot to talk about. So if you like what you see, please comment, like, all that stuff. And as I said, I forgot to say at the beginning, all of these albums are albums that have come out, after. They're not albums released within the year is what I'm trying to say. These are albums that go past the 1 year mark. That's how I consider them to be a first time listen, because otherwise I'm just listening to a new album, in my opinion. So yeah, there you go. I appreciate y'all watching. In the meantime, y'all be good. Take care. Subscribe. All that stuff. Talk to y'all soon. Bye now.